Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Hockey Happy Hour, and we are live on A2DRadio.com as well as on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we will be, of course, always on YouTube, and we've got tons to talk about today, and we are brought to you by Dr. Paul Vidal's Specialized Physical Therapy. You can find him in Burlington, Cherry Hill, and Princeton, New Jersey. If you want to make an appointment, you can't physically go there right now, but what you can do is you can make an appointment online and then take care of what you got to take care of that way at www.specializedphysicaltherapy.com. If you have any aches and pains, you won't after you go and see Dr. Paul Vidal at Specialized Physical Therapy. We welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, once again. I'm Matt Sassuti, along with Rob Povia down there, who you can see gritty up there in the top corner, prying in.
A permanent spot. He's not going anywhere. Mission
He's not going anywhere?
Style.
Okay, he's gonna.
The game's over?
Yeah. I guess the Where Goodies game is officially over. Oh well, it is what it is. He says that now, and then he'll put him in another weird spot next week just to play with us. Anyway, and right on over there is the Darkwing himself, Mr. Brian Daly.
What's going on, everybody?
And today on the show, we have a very special guest, Flyers beat writer Sam Carchidi. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, we are very happy to have you on. And obviously, you've been keeping tabs of the Flyers, just like we all have, just anticipating and waiting and hoping that the season will get going and that we'll see a Stanley Cup playoff this year.
Yeah, we sort of cleared a hurdle the other day, but there are a lot more hurdles that had to be cleared. And today there was, even another delay today. The other day, Gary Bettman said he was hopeful that the training camps could start on July 1st. And today the players were notified it wouldn't start until July 10th at the earliest. So what that does is that pushes the start of the season until at least August, maybe later. So basically, if you look ahead to next year, I think what this announcement today does, it pushes next year back even further, and we probably won't start next year until January. And how they're going to get an 82 game schedule in next year is beyond me. But they said they're going to try. Personally, I think they should just have maybe a 70 game schedule next year, and then have the playoffs and try to get things back to normal. But right now the concern is this year, and they have some dates, sketchy dates anyway right now as far as the small group practices, the training camp, and the season. And players, I expect players will be filtering in sometime in early June, and they'll have the small group workouts. But we still have ways to go, but I think it's more optimistic now that we will have the season than it was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I heard rumblings that the 2021 season may begin with the Winter Classic on January 1. Any verification, or is it still really up in the air at this point?
It's still up in the air. I've heard that rumor too, but as I said, there's so many things that have to be decided this year, not only with the season, but with the draft, with free agency, with the salary cap. The NHL has a lot of work to do, and so they're not even looking at next year right now. I mean, I guess in a way they are. But it's pretty far back in the rearview mirror, and but that would certainly make sense. But again, the virus is going to control a lot of things, and it's going to control when this season restarts, and that's going to have an effect on next year. So, any plans that the NHL makes now could change. And that's the big reason, I think, why they haven't picked the hub cities yet. Gary Bettman said the other day, they want to make sure that the city they pick isn't, a hot spot for the virus. So, let's just say right now, hypothetically, they pick Las Vegas, and then 3 weeks from now, Vegas turned into a hot spot. There was a spike in cases. Then they might have second thought. So I think they're going to wait as long as they can before they name the two hub cities.
Do you think naming the hub cities will probably be one of the last things that they do? I mean, it seems like, like you just said, trying to figure out, if places are going to spike Is that like maybe a concern of theirs?
Yeah, definitely, Brian. I think that's what they will do. I think, in fact, Bettman said the other day, we're not going to make that announcement probably for about another month. So, maybe 3.5 weeks from now, something like that. But yeah, I think that's what will happen. They will make that later rather than sooner because they don't want to get caught in the middle. And then, as you said, it becomes a hot spot. Philadelphia, by the way, of course, is not considered. There have been too many cases of the virus in Philly. So, the closest city, I guess, will be Pittsburgh is a possibility. And that's far from definite. There are 10 cities in the running. Pittsburgh, Columbus, and Raleigh, North Carolina, are the ones basically in, I guess, drivable areas, if you will, to the Philly area. But not that it matters because fans aren't going to be able to drive there. We don't even know if the media is going to be allowed in there. They weren't sure when we asked them the other day. So a lot still has to be determined.
Yeah, absolutely. And with everything that's going on, it is though great though to hear that they're trying to get it out there. I mean, it's tough though. You're in a tough spot when you're Gary Bettman in the NHL right now. It's like you want to award the cup this year, but the problem is, it's like you don't want to risk it. It's just a lot of factors there.
Yeah, no question about it. And it was exciting for me today. I hand a budget into the Inquirer. Basically every day, telling the stories I'm working on and what's coming up. And one of the stories I'm working on is the Flyers in this round robin tournament. As you know, they're going to be playing the 3 teams that are above them in the East for the East #1 seeding. And that will be Boston, Tampa Bay, and Washington. So it was fun to actually think about writing a hockey story and not a coronavirus story. So, and to see how so that'll be in the next couple of days. How the Flyers did against those teams in the regular season and how they match up with those teams. Now, we talked off the air about a lot of these teams getting players back, and that'll certainly be the case with Stamkos and Gensel and other players. And of course, the Flyers, Van Riemsdyk and Phil Myers. But, just like I'm sure you guys want to talk about hockey, I want to write about hockey as well because that's the fun of sports. Sports is supposed to be an escape, and right now with all these plans and contingency plans, it has not been much of an escape. So, but we can at least see some potential matchups right now, whether they're playing games or round robin games, and that's a lot more fun to think about than all the planning that has to go on and all the logistics that go on to put the season back together.
There's only so many simulation tournaments you can run.
Doesn't stop ESPN for highlighting them, right? But
I mean, I think we've pretty much run our course too.
Yeah, true. One of the guys here at A2D Radio, Greg Milakovic, chiming in. Sam, do we have any update on Nolan Patrick, and would he be able to return once play resumes?
Yeah, I've gotten that question from a lot of people, and I tried to get Chuck Fletcher. He's not been available the last couple of days. But the last time I talked to Chuck, I guess it was probably close to a month ago, and he said that he's still not ready for contact. Now, of course, there are no practices now, but if there was a practice, what he was saying is he wouldn't be able to have contact. So it's basically status quo for him. The last time that Fletcher made himself available, or hoping he makes himself available in the next couple of days. But, so I would be very surprised if Patrick does play, if the season resumes. For one, why take a risk after he's been out for so long? And the other point is the Flyers, are playing so well right now with the lineup they have. And now you have to add Van Riemsdyk into the lineup. And, so that's going to bump somebody else out. So, I'm not so sure there's a spot for a guy who hasn't played all year. Now, if this is the start of next year, that's a totally different story. He will start the year as the number 3 center, of course, behind Couture and Kevin Hayes. But to bring him in now, I'm not so sure they would want to risk the health of him and having a reoccurrence, even if he's feeling fine. But as I said, the last time that we talked to Chuck Fletcher, he said that he still couldn't have contact, so that was still a little worrisome. So hoping to get an update, though, in the next few days or so.
Yeah, it's that double-edged sword because everybody wants Nolan back. They want to get him back in the lineup, but the lineup's been playing so well. They found a groove without him. It could go one of two ways. You could have Nolan Patrick back in the lineup, could make the lineup better, but you could also add Patrick in the lineup, and then it just totally kills whatever groove that they were in. And it's just one of those things where it just you're not sure if it's really worth taking the risk over, and just let him just take his time, let him rest, let him get healthy, and just plug him in for next year.
Yeah, they're caught between a rock and a hard place with him, but I feel really bad for the kid. He's I've talked to him 4 or 5 times since he's had the migraine problems, and the pain in his voice is so visible, and he is so frustrated, and you feel for him because this was going to be his breakout year. I think everybody thought that. I think he thought that. By adding Kevin Hayes, they dropped him down. Of course, the third center, he was going to get a lot better matchups, and he had some work on the power play last year. Looked very good in front on the power play in front of the net. Was sort of had that Wayne Simmons role, and I thought he did a good job there. And as I said, I thought this was going to be his breakout year. I didn't expect him to go from 13 goals to superstardom, but I expected maybe 20, 22 goals and to keep climbing. And for him to be status quo basically the whole year, it's got to be frustrating. I know it's frustrating for him. And, wish him nothing but the best. And hopefully he's back. If not this year, hopefully he's back next year and he's 100%. So he will be. He's an important part of this team. Don't underestimate that moving forward for next year. He's a big part of this team.
Oh, absolutely.
Sam, I want to ask you, shifting back to the 2014 playoff tournament, what are your personal thoughts towards the tournament, whether it's fair, unfair, anywhere in between? And does this tournament setup help or hurt the Flyers' chances at the Cup?
Well, if you're a Flyers fan, I think it helps the Flyers. I mean, there's nothing for them to lose. They were the 4th seed when the season was suspended. So you have to like it there. Is it fair or unfair? I think it's really unfair to the Boston Bruins. I mean, this is a team that had 100 points. They won the President's Trophy. They were clearly going to be the top seed. It's bad enough that they work all year to get the top seed. It's bad enough that they won't have a home ice advantage because obviously the games will be played at neutral sites. But on top of that, they're not even guaranteed the top seed. And I'm very surprised the NHL did this, to be honest with you, with this round robin tournament. When they first announced it, I just figured that the Flyers, they ended the season with 89 points. Washington had 90. So I just assumed that the Flyers, if they did well, they could maybe gain a couple points on Washington and they could climb up to 3 and be the number 3 seed. But that's not the case. The NHL is wiping the slate clear. And whoever wins this round robin tournament is going to be the top seed in the East. And potentially that leads to better matchups. So the Flyers could get the top seed. Let's say the Flyers go 3-0. They'll be the top seed in the East. And we still don't know if it's going to be a bracket or if it's going to be a reseeding process. So we don't know who they would play. But potentially, and that's a key word, potentially, they'll get a good matchup. But again, this year, it doesn't matter as much because one, as I mentioned, you're not going to have a home ice advantage, and two, remember back to 2010, the Flyers were the 7th seed in the East. Montreal was the 8th seed in the East. They ended up in the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, the Flyers were the 7th seed and had the home ice advantage, which is mind-boggling. That had never happened before. So I guess my point is that, the team that's the hottest in the playoffs, forget the seeding. The team, if you're hot, you can go. If you catch fire like the Flyers did in 2010, you catch fire at the right time, It doesn't matter if you're seventh, eighth, or what your seed is. So that takes some of this thing away from Boston. But again, I really think they got the short end of the stick. The only good thing from the Bruins standpoint is if two teams end up tied in this round robin tournament, let's say the Flyers and Boston both end up 2-0-1 in the 3 games. The tiebreaker is your points percentage in the regular season. And of course, Boston would win that. So Boston, can fall back on that. But by having this tournament the way it's set up, it basically ignores the regular season. And I'm surprised the NHL did that.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm surprised too.
But yeah, with the way that everything was going, I thought the deeper that this sort of suspension was going on, I thought that the further it was going, I figured at some point the NHL is just going to say we're going to cancel the rest of the season. The way the standings are now is how the playoffs are going to be. But then you tie into obviously the teams that were going to be on the cusp of a possible wild card spot. They were thinking of those teams. And then the possibility of, okay, just have the bye and then have the teams seeded from where they were in the standings and then go from there. Surprisingly, like you were saying, they decided, no, we're not even going to bring that into account. We're just going to have them play out and see where they land. That's crazy. It'd be one of the few times you have a President's Trophy winning squad and they're not the top seed in the playoffs.
Right. I could see them having the tournament to get the ring rust off, but to have so much on the line in the tournament, I agree with you. That's where I question it.
Yeah, and to me, I think they have too many teams in this tournament. To me, and I've written this several times, that to have 24 teams in this tournament to me is ludicrous because it's going to just drag out. It's going to take 2.5 months to complete it. I would have, going back to the old days, had 4 teams in each conference make it, so 8 teams total instead of 24. And you have Stanley Cup quarterfinals, Stanley Cup semifinals, and Stanley Cup finals. You get the season over with quickly. You want to start up quickly. You want to end it quickly. That way, it wouldn't go into next year. So instead of it harming 2 seasons, 1 season, it harms 2 seasons the way it's set up. So would that have been fair to all teams? Absolutely not. And I understand why the Pittsburghs and the Carolinas and the other teams that would have made the playoffs in an 8-team field will be upset with that. But these are different times. These are crazy times. And I think you had to think outside the box and give the NHL credit. I understand what they're trying to do. If a team was on the bubble, they wanted to give them a chance to get in. But as I said, to me, this is a special circumstances. I would have done it much differently. And you look at the 2014 field, and you have teams like Montreal that, just don't deserve to be there. They had 9 more losses than wins. And, how they're in the playoffs, and they can steal, things with a hot goalie like Carey Price. I don't think they will, but there's that possibility. But they don't deserve to be in the playoffs. So, I think the NHL was too accommodating. I understand what they tried to do, but again, I disagree with it. So, hopefully it works out.
Yeah, and there was a question from one of the viewers, Prism 280, who did say, did you think that Carey Price could be a legit threat to Pittsburgh? Because there were several brackets that were made that would have Pittsburgh and Montreal facing off with each other. For me personally, if Price does want to be Price, he can shut them down. But at the same time, it is Pittsburgh, and they've got Crosby, Malkin, and the usual suspects, that just score goals like that.
And it is Montreal. Montreal is not a good team. So, maybe the series goes, it's a best of 5. Maybe it goes 4 games, but I'd be shocked if Pittsburgh didn't win it and didn't win it in fairly easy fashion. The other thing is, by having 24 teams and dragging it out for 2.5 months, you increase the risk that a team is going to have a couple of players, maybe more, come down with the coronavirus. And if a team has a lot of players have to go on quarantine, then what happens? Let's just say, God forbid, throw a couple names out there, Kevin Hayes and Claude Giroux of the Flyers catch the virus, and the NHL says they're not going to necessarily quarantine the rest of the team. And then what happens if a day later another player gets it? Then all of a sudden you have to quarantine everybody. Does the tournament stop at that point? These are questions that the NHL could not answer the other day, but that again, that's another reason why I say I would have gone with just an 8-team tournament, get it done, and don't increase the chance that somebody's going to come down with it, and maybe a team comes down with it. I'm sure you guys know, 100 years ago in 1919, because of the Spanish flu, the Stanley Cup final was canceled with one game left because of, half a team, the Montreal Canadiens, came down with it, and the series was tied, and unfortunately they couldn't finish it. They were playing Seattle at that time, which was in the league, and actually one of the Montreal players ended up dying from the Spanish flu. So again, I'm obviously not wishing this on anybody, but I'm just saying that the longer the season goes, you're just increasing the chance, and who knows if there's a second wave of the virus. So, I would have just finished the season, 8 teams in it, and good night, Irene. But I just hope it all works out.
Sam, just a couple more questions for you. One from Tom Arnone. Ryan, if you want to bring that back up. Tom, who runs HUD, says, thoughts on how hard it would be for the Flyers to get that momentum back?
Yeah, good question. And I don't think it's going to be as difficult as it seems. I mean, they're probably going to be out for like 4.5, 5 months, and you're not going to just push a switch and it comes back. But the fact that they were so hot and playing so well over a long period, they won 9 of 10, and going back even further, they were one of the NHL's best teams over the last 2-3 months. And I think they can build off that, and that's going to be in the back of their mind. They know what they did, and are they going to be, a little bit rusty when they come back? Sure, everybody will be, though, too. So you can't use that as an excuse. Every team is in the same boat. But I think they can just pull from what they learned about each other. I thought all 4 lines are working. All 4 lines were contributing. The defensemen were in sync. Robert Haig was playing well, and he had forced Shane Gostisbehere onto the bench. Carter Hart had like a .934 save percentage since coming back from an injury 11 games before. So everything was clicking, and of course, Vigneault was pulling all the right strings. So I don't think, as I said, you're not going to push a button and, hey, instant chemistry. But I think before not too long, they're going to get back into that groove. So, to answer your question, I think they will continue the way they were playing. And I'm anxious to see how it plays out. But, they certainly were playing their best hockey this season, no question.
Absolutely.
And I got one last one for you, Sam. Do you think that, doesn't matter who it is, whoever pulls down the Stanley Cup, do you think that tarnishes the cup for the year, or do you think it'll mean the same? It's going to mean less?
Yeah, I don't think it'll tarnish it. I mean, we've had lockout seasons. We've had 48-game seasons, and teams have won the cup. So, I think it will seem different. There's no question about it. But will it tarnish it? I don't think so, because every team's in the same boat right now, and you're going to have to go through a grueling set of games. It's still going to be 4 series, and we should point out that for the teams in the play-in games, this has never happened before. You're going to have to win 5 series to win the cup. Back when the Flyers won their 2 cups in 74, 75, you only had to win 3 series. This year, you're going to have to win 5, and maybe the team that wins a play-in, I never thought about this till just now, but maybe a team that wins a play-in and is forced to win 5 just runs out of energy in the Stanley Cup final, and they're beaten in the Stanley Cup final. And, I don't think that will taint it, but it'll leave some questions, like what would have happened if they didn't have to play that play-in game and they weren't so physically drained. That said, I still don't think it taints it, because the team that they faced would still have to go through at least 4 rounds. And it's the best tournament of all the sports. I think the Stanley Cup is a grind, and it's the toughest tournament to win. And I think that makes it the best tournament. So I think whoever wins it, can hold their head up high and celebrate. And the big question is, will there be a parade, or will we have to keep social distancing?
I've said it
probably be a
before.
virtual parade.
I've said it before. If the Flyers were to win the cup and they were going to have an actual physical parade, I will have a hazmat suit, gas mask, and I will be there watching the parade and watch them hold the cup.
I already got my
one.
Breaking Bad style here, so
I
I'm
like
good
that.
and set.
Yeah. But Rob, do you have any final questions for Sam?
I do have one quick one, and feel free to say no comment, Sam. But any take on this whole Mikey blow up?
I'm sorry, you cut out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any take on the whole Mikey Miz blow up, throwing the headset, cursing at his producers the other day? I don't know if you have a stance on that.
I don't like to get involved with other writers or broadcasters. So I'll plead the fifth on that. Mikey was one of my coworkers at the Inquirer too, so it wouldn't be fair for me to comment. But
Sure.
He does a good job, and I remember, I was covering high schools back in the day, and Mike was covering high schools back in the day. He's grown and does a great job in a lot of different mediums. But I'll just leave it at that if you don't mind.
Oh, not
No
a problem at
problem.
all, man. Not a problem at all. Everybody in this business or outside has their moments. I don't think we can be judged by one single one in time. So I respect you. Yeah.
Well said.
And final question for me before we let you go is, during your time being the beat writer for the Flyers, what was like the season that you thought was like the most exciting? Like you were just constantly like hammering out articles, like, man, I cannot wait until the next game.
Well, no question, it was 2009 and 10, because, that was the year, as you guys well remember, when they had to win in a shootout the last day of the regular season against the great Henrik Lundqvist, and Brian Boucher outplayed him in the shootout, and the rest is history. And of course, that second round against the Boston Bruins. I've covered World Series games. I covered the Phillies in the famous game where Joe Carter won the series with his dramatic homer, and covered a lot of big games, playoff games in other sports, Eagles, Phillies, you name it. But that game, that series, and that last game, Game 7 against Boston in 2010 is at the top of my list. I mean, that was just an incredible game, and when they fell behind 3-0, you're just saying, they came back for this. They came back and won 3 straight games, and they're going to just fall out with a whimper. And then, you guys know what happened. Van Riemsdyk scores the 1 goal, and as Lavalette said, get one. Just get one before the end of the period. He did, and Hartnell and Briere scored early in the second, and then it was pins and needles, and it was just great theater. I just can't say enough about that game. And when that series ended, I remember saying to colleagues that I think this team's going to win the cup. And then, they just seemed like a team of destiny. And then, lo and behold, they went past Montreal in 5 games. Michael Leighton had 3 shutouts out of the 4 wins. And here they went. They're going to win the Stanley Cup. And, we all know what happened against the Blackhawks. And it's just a shame, because all the Ducks were in a row, and it just seemed like it was their year. That was a great Flyers team, too. You had a guy like Claude Giroux, who was a third liner. That's how deep that was, with Richards and Carter and Danny Briere, and even Ville Leno came out of nowhere. And it was just a tremendous series. It's a shame, because if they had gotten, and this isn't a knock on Leighton, because without him, they don't get to the final. Yeah. But if he had just played maybe average, they probably would have won the cup. Chicago did not get great goaltending. Antti Niemi was okay at best, but that was better than the Flyers got goaltending. And to me, the key in that series was the first game. The Flyers had a lead, and they ended up losing 6-5, and that was the game that they could have taking away the home ice advantage, and that kind of set the tone. That said, I still think if they won Game 6, they were going to go to Chicago and win Game 7 because the momentum was on their side, and they always did things that year the hard way. So even going into the Game 6, if you remember, Scotty Hartman scored with maybe 2.5 minutes to go to tie that game.
Yeah.
Jeff Carter couldn't put in a rebound out front with maybe 50 seconds to go, maybe a minute to go. If he puts that in, I think there would have been a parade down Broad Street after Game 7. But that's what makes sports so great. I mean, and all the credit to the Chicago Blackhawks because, they won the game on the road, and you can say it was a bad goal that Patrick Kane scored, but the Hawks worked hard too. They were a great opponent. That was just a great series.
Yep.
And
They were a great team that year.
Yeah,
and they proved it because they won 2 more after it. So it just it validified how they were good, and what they were able to do.
No question, but it's easy for me when you say what's been the best memory of covering this Flyers team. That was it, and this year was starting to feel magical too, and it still might. I tell you what, Alain Vigneault and his staff have done a great job, and I talked to Bobby Clark the other day I'm doing a series in the Inquirer on the top 10 playoff games in Flyers history, and he was talking about how going into the Boston series when they won their first cup in '74, everybody was calling them an underdog. He says, but I didn't feel that way. He says, number one, we had better coaching. Number two, we had a better defense than Boston. They had the superstar in Bobby Orr, but our all-around defense was better. And number three, we had Fred Shero. And and in a way, and I'm not comparing Carter Hart to Bernie Perron in any way, but in a way, Carter Hart is getting there, if you know what I mean. I mean, he's better than a lot of goalies that the Flyers have faced this year, and it seemed like the Flyers the last 5, 6, 7 years, there was always the other goalie that was stealing games, and very rarely did a Flyers goalie do that. Carter Hart has stolen games this year, and I think he still can steal games in the playoffs this year. So I'm anxious to see how he does. And to compare Vigneault again, I'm not saying he's up there with Fred Shero. Shero won a couple cups and got the Rangers to the finals, and just an innovator and a tremendous coach. But I will say this: Vigneault is not outcoached that often. So the Flyers, I think they're getting there this year. And this year had a real good feel to it. And I hope when they restart that feel is still there. But, we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, thank you so very much for coming on to the show, Sam. And we look forward to reading more of your articles on the Flyers through possibly the season restarting with the playoffs, and then going into next year, obviously, with the Flyers going on another journey, hopefully to a Stanley Cup.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much,
Sam. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, then. And that was Sam Carchidi, the Flyers beat writer. Awesome time talking to him about the Flyers, the current situation going on with the playoffs, the 2014 bracket that has been set up as the possible go-to if the play does resume for the NHL. And also talking about some of the moments he really enjoyed, as a beat writer for the Flyers, and getting a chance to talk to some other stuff about Philadelphia and the players that we have currently here.
Yeah, Dean. Go ahead, Rob. Dean, he was a great guest. Beat writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer. You can find his stuff pretty much anywhere you can get the Inquirer. But yeah, I agree. Only God does save more than Bernie.
You're right. All right, guys. That was good. Oh, I'm sorry, Rob. Go right ahead, man. That was my bad.
I was just going to say, great minds think alike, Brian. I just wanted to plug Sam's Twitter handle at Broad Street Bull. He also wrote Miracle in the Making. Definitely check that out. As well as your local Philadelphia Inquirer and DN Nation.
Yeah. All right, guys. Great show.
All right, guys. See you next
I'm
week.
gonna.
Yeah. All right. But anyway, yeah. So as
Y'all
we were
thought
talking,
that was good. Wait till next week.
yeah, we do have that big guest coming on as well, and that will be Chris Pronger, who will be joining us for next week's show, and the guy whose comment we have right here, none other than Crow himself, saying, love hearing Sam's insight, and he, of course, will be joining us for his first ever appearance on the Hockey Happy Hour, so it's awesome. And he says, next week is going to rock, you're right.
I want to ask you guys a question real quick.
Go right ahead.
Not a bad question at all. Talking to guys like Sam Carchidi and some of the guests that we've had before, are you guys humbled by any of it? Because I am. I feel like I learned so much from these guys, like just insight and perspective that I don't usually think about.
I mean, I think so. I mean, there have been, Sam, obviously, he's been covering the Flyers for a while now, so, he knows a lot more than I do. So to hear him just give us just a sliver of the knowledge that he has is, that's great to hear, and obviously when we had John Riley on, he's actually physically with the Flyers, so he's getting a chance to see one-on-one the young players, see them develop, see how this team's coming together. Obviously he's going to know more than we do. It's great to get that kind of insight. It just helps dropping that knowledge to the public through the guests that we have.
Rob, what do you think?
Yeah, man. I'm humbled every day. I'm humbled just to be on with you guys every week, and when we have these experts on, I mean, Sam broke down everything that I would have said about this 2014 tournament coming directly from the source. So it's always good to get a primary than a secondary. So, certainly great. Appreciate his time. And the whole station as a whole been pulling lots of great guests because, we are the shit.
Yeah, we are. There we are.
Love it.
That interview, by the way, real quick, it was brought to you by Philly Drinkers LLC. You can get all your ATG merch there. Sweaters, hoodies, zip-ups, T-shirts, lots of T-shirts. Quarterback Factory T-shirt out now. Hats, stickers, whatever you want. Board shorts, yes. Board shorts, ATG board shorts. Only at PhillyDrinkers.com, baby. Go get your ATG merch there.
Absolutely. Plenty of cool stuff going on. Yeah, we got all that stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm
down.
rocking it all right now. So you got a T-shirt.
Rob's got his guy going. It's all awesome. And Chrome saying, I'm constantly humbled by it. People who are in the game or so close to it, always an honor to have the perspective shared with. Absolutely. It's always great. Absolutely. Always great to have that insider knowledge.
I always thought that I knew a lot about the sport, but then I started talking to some of these guys and I'm humbled by it. Like, well, all right, so maybe I don't know as much as I think. And that's okay. That means there's room to grow, room to learn. So I take it as a huge plus.
Yeah, and I'll just give you a quick example. I was 100% behind this 2014 tournament coming into this show. And now maybe I'm at like 90% because of that round robin discussion that we had. It really isn't fair to a team like the Boston Bruins to potentially lose that number 1 seed in playing a best of 3 round robin after 4 or 5 months of not playing. What it created was a suggestion for me. Instead of having the top 4 seeds play that round robin, why not have the bottom 4 play-in teams play a round robin in order to get into the 16-team tournament?
That's not a bad idea.
No.
I mean, I'm still all for it. I'm still 100% in. Like, I understand the perspective that Sam brings. And it's an interesting, like I said, it's an interesting perspective that I didn't exactly think about because, I love the idea of the 24 teams. Personally, I think it's the fairest thing for the bubble teams involved. And unfortunately, you got to keep the sides even. So you got to lump in a team that shouldn't be there. So, I mean, what was I going to say? So those teams are going to play in the qualifying round. What are these top 4 teams going to do? They got to play. You're not going to let them just sit there for however long. So you got to come up with something. And I know people are going to disagree, and that's fine. It's just, these teams, they got to do something. They got to keep their legs going. They got to keep the rust off, and you got to do something. So I think what Bettman did was best thing he could do was, create a little round robin for seeding. Just keep these guys fresh, keep them going, like you said, Rob, keep the ring rust off.
Right. And I think it is important to do that. They should definitely play. Right. And now you could say, well, are scrimmage games going to have the same intensity to ramp them up for, when the actual tournament starts? That's why they're putting the seedings on the line. And that was my understanding when it first was released. And I agreed with that. But I think it's a little too much cheese to put on that burger, having seedings involved. And these guys are professionals. They're going to have this 3 weeks of training camp that, if that does start July 10th and runs to August, and then they have this best of 3 round robin series, that alone be enough to get the rust off. What do you think, Maddie?
I think with the way that it's set up, it's see, the tough part is because of the fact that they're only going to have 2 cities,
Right.
So the scheduling problem is the real, because you're going to have people kind of isolated. The players can only have a certain amount of people travel with them, which is team personnel limitations. And then on top of that, that's not including the production people. There's just a lot of variables here for that lead to scheduling complex. For me personally, doing the round robin thing, I see where their mind is at. I would say that, if you're going to do it that way, I feel as though like having it mean so much may not always be the best thing in the world. But if you do have them, though, and you kind of get the guys into the swing of things like a preseason, just have preliminary games where it's just like, okay, they're not going to change the standings. But what they are going to do is they're going to get you guys back into the swing of things. That would have been fine with me, because you already had the standings. And like Sam said, they're not taking the season into account at all. They're just going to say, fuck it, we're just going to have the guys play and seed through that. And it's like, well, then why worry about the standings at all then? Just like there's no point to it then. It's like there was no point to the season then. To me, I feel like the only thing they're really relying on is if they need a tiebreaker for the standings, which I feel like you already had them set up the way they had them set up. Why not just have the tournament and just have some preliminary games? That just seems like that would be easier,
They're trying to make it fair, and you're not going to. We're in, unusual circumstances. But for people to come out and blast that it's extremely not fair and there's going to be an asterisk to this cup, that's totally dumbfounded. I agree with Sam. This year, matter of fact, it's going to be more challenging to win the cup with a potential team having to play 5 rounds. They should get like an extra little bonus, a little extra participation trophy with that Stanley Cup. But I mean, Montreal and Chicago wouldn't have made the playoffs. I get that, but we don't know that for 100% because neither was mathematically eliminated prior to the season suspension. Chicago was 6 points out of the second wild card. Montreal was 10 points back, so definitely the least deserving of a spot. But hey, they still could have made a run. I mean, should the league have made it 22 teams then, excluding Montreal and Chicago, and one less bye in each conference? That wouldn't work out mathematically in the second round. You would have another idle team. And secondly, and this is what's more important, it's vital to have both Chicago and Montreal's market in play for the playoffs for both TV revenue and fanfare. It's all about the green. That's the difference between the Spanish flu of 1912 and being canceled with only 1 game left, because there's a lot more money on the table. We're seeing that in baseball, and we're seeing that with the NHL. And I mean, in their defense, they do need to make up the money lost during the suspension somehow.
Yep. We got Chrome chiming in saying, this is actually to you, Rob. He says, you can't start the round of 16 until the bottom 4 play out. If you have the top seeds play for positioning while the other teams play, it allows everyone to hit the ice at the same time.
The top 4 seeds are on bye while the first round's going on. So on bye. So they'll be playing that round robin tournament during that bye period while those playing games going. So everybody's hitting the ice at the same time, Cromer.
So I had a thought process.
My understanding.
That's my understanding as well. Talking about a hub, and we're really going to start getting into this format here. Is how do you think they break it up? Do you think they break it up full Eastern Conference, full Western Conference? Do they do 2 and 2? Because Maddie brought up an interesting point when it comes to scheduling. If you got all the teams playing in the same arena, let's say it's all Western Conference, which is typically 10 o'clock, and you got all Eastern Conference, which is typically 7 o'clock. How are you going to make that work out? So that's kind of like my thought process. What do you guys think?
Well, before I answer that, Prism 280 saying,
Yes.
Can you imagine the shit talking we are going to get to hear with no fans in the crowd? It's a chance for the NHL to market the player's personality to a broader audience. That is true.
A lot of chirping. A lot of chirping.
What's funny about this comment by Prism's an awesome comment, dude. We hear chirping with the audience, with the crowd in the stands. Imagine how much more we're going to hear, even from the bench, from the penalty boxes, in between plays. Oh, it's going to be fun.
You're going to have to put this shit on HBO, man, because it's going to be explicit lyrics. So.
It's funny. Like I said, like even if you like check out a scrum, like at the end of a play, every once in a while you're going to hear an F-bomb drop. There's not much you can do about that. You're going to hear it.
I remember the what was it during the playoffs between St. Louis and Chicago? What Backus got knocked the fuck out, and fucking I forget who said it, but he said "wakey wakey Backus," and you can hear it over the microphone. I'm like, oh my god, he just knocked him out. He's trying to get him to wake fuck. That's priceless when you hear shit like that.
I remember that. I remember chirp after a massive hit.
That's a good point, Cromer. That's a good point. Yeah, I see the point you're making there now. You'd have to design it where they're playing at the same time. So I get we're mixing up the hypothetical versus what was approved by the Ready for Play initiative by the NHLPA. But yeah. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Nobody wants to see this fucking mug. Matter of fact. Peace out, Cub Scouts.
Oh, come on back, Rob.
Listen, Crum just got his balls busted by David Starr earlier today, which you should check out after this show. So don't feel bad, Rob. It's not you. It's not you.
I had to jump off. I originally jumped in at like 10 minutes into the show. And first of all, David Starr was a great guest for Lazy Booking. I strongly suggest checking that out as soon as you're done with us. Amazing guy, amazing interview. You guys did awesome. As soon as I turned it off, I got a message from Tom in the WhatsApp group saying, I just spit my drink out. And I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And then I find out probably like an hour later that the dude cut a promo on Chrome. I'm like, oh, and I missed it.
Oh, it was priceless. It's priceless. Don't worry. If you don't go back and see it on Lazy Booking, which you should, you can you'll find it later on posted on Facebook and all the other social medias for the best clip of the week for Lazy Booking. But anyway.
Real quick, Brody, you want to bring up Kurt Cooper's comment real quick? I wanted to get to that one.
Saying we're going to have.
Not that one. Although that's pretty funny.
That is funny.
There was one before that one. Yeah, there it is. He says, my man, Kurt Cooper says, I'm still 100% for the setup. Again, it's not a perfect setting. It's not intended to be, but it's hockey, and it's a very imperfect architecture in a very imperfect time. That's my thoughts, even after hearing Sam, and I'm with this 100%. This is it's a very unfortunate situation that we're in right now. It's an unfortunate world we're in right now. A lot of craziness going on, and we need sports back, even if it's not perfect, like this setup is. And you're not gonna make everybody happy, no matter what you do or what you try. There's gonna be you're not gonna get 100% satisfaction on any kind of playoff setup, any setup in any sport. So, it's honestly, I think this is the best situation they could have come up with. Yeah, maybe cut the teams down a little bit, but as far as the format goes, for what they have, I think it's pretty good.
Here's the thing, too. If they wind up going through with this, as much as people, Crow, talking about David Starr, but I was going to say, even, if we get this, even if we get the playoff format the way we get the playoff format, I look at it this way. We almost didn't even have it at all. You know,
Yeah.
we could have had a year where the cup was not awarded again, and this time, not because of a lockout or any of the pissy ass bullshit that you hear about. Oh, well, the owners are screwing over us. We want this. We're not making enough millions of dollars. Or the owners saying, oh, these guys are making way too much money. How dare they? We should pay them nothing. You know, none of the bullshit squabbles that you hear about with lockouts and shit like that. We almost could have not had a play. We could, if we get it, we could have not had the cup awarded because of something that was beyond anybody's control. But they managed to make something happen anyway. So no matter what format they roll out, I'm grateful that they were able to even do it, and no one got sick or no one got hurt. If they pull that off of it, then I'm grateful for that, because it almost wasn't the case. We almost didn't get it at all at the end of the day.
My man Kurt says, I was telling my father yesterday, people just want to see hockey. Even the people that are complaining about the setup will be stoked when the hockey resumes. And again, I can't disagree with that comment, because it's true. That's all I talk about with one of the guys at work is, you know, when's it coming back? When's it coming back? You know, is it going to be the same? Is it not going to be the same? Like, we're talking about scenarios. We don't want to talk about scenarios. We want to talk about hockey. Even on this show, we want to talk hockey. Right now, we should be watching the Stanley Cup Finals.
Right.
But we're not.
I mean,
so
let me give you a metaphor real quick, Brian, right? All right, let's say you're getting into that popular Netflix Ozark, I love, absolutely great show, right? And you binge watch all 3 seasons, but then you stop at the second to last episode of the 3rd season, and you don't have that closure. You don't have that, you know, sort of ending to the story. That's a big thing. Am I in your head? Yeah, I'm gonna get out of your head.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Oh, it's so funny you bring that up, because I'm watching The Walking Dead, right? And I just caught up with season 10, and I get to the 15th episode. They usually run 16 episode seasons. I get to the 15th episode, right? Shit's about to go down. All hell is about to break loose. And I get to the end of the credits. I'm like, all right, gonna get to season 16. Wait a second. This isn't the finale? There's a freaking promo at the end of the show saying the season finale will be out later this year.
Wow.
That's an even better example. Yeah, that's perfect.
I was so mad.
Yeah.
Oh.
They couldn't finish it because usually with season finale, they got to do post-production stuff currently, and they can't do that due to the pandemic. So, right.
Bingo.
Right.
They couldn't finish the post-production.
Right.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I had to get that off my chest. It pissed me off so much.
And I think that's important. I mean, without hijacking next season, I think that's important. And if it's able to work out, you know, where they start the playoffs in August, and then they're not able to then start the 2021 till the Winter Classic, that would be a kind of great way to celebrate. Imagine if that's the return to fans back in stands too. It'll be fucking nuts. That's a party, and all 3 of us are going. We're all going. Let's go.
You paying for me?
I'll pay for you.
Right on, I'm in.
I got my PPP funds. I'll pay.
Going to the Winter Classic. Listen, I like to sit up high, so I'm a cheap date.
See, we say that. So you say that now until you realize, like, oh, they're having it in Vancouver, British Columbia. We got to go all the way across state.
Yeah, I mean, that's a Heritage Classic. We ain't even got to worry about that. We don't got to worry about going there. Maybe Minnesota.
I hope not, because I have to get my passport.
Year, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, I think it is Minnesota this year.
It's in Minnesota. I think the Wild are hosting.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm down.
Yeah, I'll be down. I'll be down to go to Minnesota. Never been to Minnesota. Closest I ever got was Illinois.
Just not right now.
Just not right now.
Not right now with all the protests.
Yeah, with all that shit going down. Yeah.
A coworker of mine actually had to move locations because he was like about 5 blocks away from the police precinct there in Minnesota. So when things calm down, we got a place to stay with him, because it is indeed at in Minneapolis, Minnesota this season or next year.
No judgment, Kirk. No judgment, Kirk, because you know what? I watch all those shows. I don't really watch Supernatural, but I do watch Flash. I do watch Supergirl. I didn't like Black Lightning as much. I'm starting the Titans tonight. Just finished the final season of Arrow. I cried like a bitch. I'm not going to lie. The way they ended it was great. Very, very well done ending. But yeah, no, dude. I get that feeling. I get that feeling. It sucked. I hated
Flash,
it.
Flash is the best. The best.
No, I love the
Yes.
Flash, but no, Arrow's the best.
Oh
Oh yeah.
no. It's good. It's good. But I disagree.
Come on, Willa Holland's in Arrow. That's enough right there.
So, Prism
Tell me you don't
280
like Willa
says.
Holland. Come on, man.
Prism 280 says, as Philly fans, would you guys in a hypothetical finals rather play the Blackhawks again, or would you want the best matchup advantage wise? Well, it depends on the
It's a good
situation. It is a good question. See, the thing is that, you know, if you have a good enough team that rallies around itself and has enough ability to change momentum on a dime, it doesn't matter who you face. You'll be able to take on anybody. For me personally,
Not you, Rob.
here's the thing though. If you want to have a guaranteed cup, yeah, you take the Blackhawks because you know the Flyers would win that series if you're talking this year. If you rewind the tape a few years back, probably not. But, I would say, like, it just depends on do you want a guaranteed cup or do you really want to see a series that makes you proud of, like, holy shit, we won the cup and we beat them. Like, holy shit, that was impressive. You know?
I don't – listen, Maddie, you know just as well as anybody else, there's no such thing as a guarantee in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Well, that's true.
We've seen upsets left and right. I mean, I was just watching the Stanley Cup video from the LA Kings when they won in, 2013 when they beat the Devils?
2012.
2012. You're right, 2012. Anything can happen, man. As far as Prism's question, I would like to see them play. I think they can compete with anybody right now. So it doesn't really matter. Honestly, I would like to see him play the Blues. I think that would be a fun matchup. Berube versus his old team. Shen versus his old team. A couple storylines tied in there. I think that would make it for a pretty good final. Two fairly physical teams that have a lot of scoring upside, play good defense, have some solid goaltending. I think that would be a very high-rated Stanley Cup final.
For me, I guess I would want them to face the Oilers. I would want them to face off with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And if they could get
real quick,
yeah.
Congratulations to Leon Draisaitl for winning the Art Ross Trophy.
Continue. But I was going to say, like, it would be great, actually. It'd be the third time that these two teams meet up, but it'd be great if the Flyers could actually be like, cool, we got revenge for the 1980s, and we beat a team that is very heavily compared to the two players that are compared to Gretzky and Messier and such like that.
So you want revenge, Maddie, but you're going back to the 80s for it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I thought about it while Brian was talking, and I was thinking, like, what team does the Flyers have history with in the West? And the first one that popped in my head was Edmonton because I realized we didn't meet any of the other ones in the Stanley Cup final, so I'll take it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a hell of a long time to hold a grudge.
Yeah.
Well, I mean it is Philadelphia.
Yeah. Oh,
True.
yeah, after all.
True.
I mean, revenge aside, playing Chicago and having another opportunity to defeat them and hoist the cup would be great, but that would promote a lot of asterisk talk. You know what I mean? And if the Flyers are going to win the cup, it should be clean. We've waited so damn long for it. So it should be clean. So I'll shy away from that, and I'm going to side with Kirk on this one. I would definitely love to see the Flyers face off against the Avalanche. That would be an exciting NHL Finals. Two young teams, two high-scoring teams, that still play good defense and have solid goaltending. That would be a phenomenal cup. And if the Flyers were able to beat the Avalanche there, I mean, on top of all the challenges that this year promotes, beating them to hoist the cup, there's no asterisks involved.
Prism, which finals were you talking about would be physical? Because we got St. Louis and Edmonton and Colorado.
Yep.
I think you might be thinking. I think you might be saying Colorado and Philly. Although I think St. Louis and Philly would definitely be physical too.
Oh, for sure. I want you guys' takes on the question that I asked Sam earlier, do you think if the Flyers, well, really whoever hoists the cup, you think it taints it for the city? Do you think there's going to be an asterisk next to the 2019-2020 Stanley Cup champion?
Well, we've already made our opinions on that, where we honestly don't believe that. We pretty much say, you know what, they still won the cup. Doesn't matter that what happened. It was stuff beyond their control. It's not like the season got locked out or there was a strike. Like I said, wasn't any pissy ass shit between the union of the NHLPA and the owners. This was something no one could control, and we should be happy we got it anyway. And if our team was to win it, it's still special. I don't care. And Prism was saying Blues Flyers. But anyway.
Very physical.
Yeah, my man.
Yeah, very physical.
My man Damien, our brother from down under.
What's going on, man?
Yeah. To answer your question, Brian, should there be? Absolutely not. For all the reasons I've stated before. Will there be? Because it's a team from Philadelphia? Yeah. I think there will, because everybody shits on teams from Philadelphia. And I'm on both sides of that coin, as you boys know. Right?
Yeah, you are.
I mean, when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, right away, there, all this talk, that, maybe they shouldn't have been there, that they were there with a backup quarterback, that they should get rid of Wentz, and creating all this fucking crazy talk, right?
That's still there for some reason.
Yeah, that's still there. And that's Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, we have some really smart fans in our fan bases here, and then we got guys like I'll continue to keep him anonymous, but a former HUD employee. I'm not going to say his name. But yeah, I don't think
which one you're talking about. But anyway,
there's one specific one. Anybody who's been paying attention to any of these shows knows who we're talking about. As far as like my thought process during this, I don't think it taints it at all. I mean, if anything, if those lockout seasons where they wound up only playing half a season, that doesn't taint the Stanley Cup. Why would this? To your point, Maddie, this is something we can't control as people. We can't control virus outbreak. We can't control pandemics. Epidemics. We can't control any of that. So I think when Drew Doughty came out and said that it would be a tainted Stanley Cup, that it's not going to mean as much, I think he's just butthurt because he's one of the worst teams in the league. And it's a team that's rebuilding.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't matter. Like right now, with all the bullshit that's going on, even in Minneapolis right now with all that extracurricular crap, these cities need sports back, and I think a team would really relish an opportunity to raise some kind of trophy right now, whether it be the greatest trophy in all of sports, the Stanley Cup, NBA Final Championship. If the MLB can get their head out of their asses, maybe a World Series championship. I mean, I think that's something that's really going to boost morale for a lot of people. I think it might make it a little bit more special this year specifically because of everything that's going on.
Well, and also on top of it too, again, like you were saying about the lockouts and everything like that, it's just like, how many times has it been where the playoffs had to have been reformatted? There were times where the league was merging with another league, and the playoff format was 1 through 16. And it didn't matter whether you were playing on the East or you were playing on the West. If you had a 16th-seeded West team and you had a top-seeded East team, those two teams were playing each other in the first round. And then they had to continue throughout the rest of the series, no matter whether it was East or West. They didn't reseed it. It was 1 through 16. Whoever you faced was who you faced to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. Do they not count as a Stanley Cup victory because they had to do East versus West in the first round? Because it was such a weird, strange playoffs. It's ridiculous. And Drew Doughty, too. Fucking sour grapes. I mean, dude, you won 2. You won 2 fucking cups. What is wrong with you, dude? Like, suck my fucking cock, you fucking annoying little shit. Seriously. Right? And at one point, I wanted you on the Flyers, too. Fuck off. Anyway.
Well, I mean,
I think I opened up a bad can there.
No, because
for
here's
sure.
my thing. Like, here's the thing too. It's like this guy wins 2 Stanley Cups, and then he comes out and he says, "Oh, it's a tainted cup." It's like, fuck you, dude. You won 2 fucking cups, and you're bitching about a fact that you were never even going to compete for this one. Shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. You make a lot of money. You won 2 cups. You probably have a hot wife, and you're living out in California. Shut the fuck up, dude. All right, moving on.
You fucking millennials, I tell you. But like we were talking with Sam, and to your guys' point earlier, you're not going to be able to please everybody, right? Especially in this hypersensitive world, you're certainly not going to be able to please everybody. And Sam said it himself. Is it perfect? No, but it gets the job done.
Yep.
Will there be a stain? It will be, but very short-lived, like we saw in the strike season. During that year, going through that year, and I was certainly in my avid hockey fandom at that time, there was a bit of a stain, but by next season it was gone, and that was a champ. And you look back at it now, and they're a champ like every other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the thing too, Rob, and that's an excellent point. Yeah, for a couple of years we're gonna be like, oh yeah, the COVID season.
Right.
Time's gonna go by, and we're gonna talk about the 2020 Stanley Cup champion, like just he's a normal champion, like it's a normal season.
Right.
And like you said, the shortened seasons, lockouts, strikes, baseball, all that stuff, like they're champions now. Nobody calls them like, oh yeah, they're the sort of champions from the lockout season. They're the sort of champions from the shortened season. They're just champions.
But that should be a badge of honor, not a knock on them. Look at what these brave men are going to have to do. They may eventually have to, even live out on the road in quarantine, but they're going to be quarantined from their families for at least 4, maybe 5 months in order to get this done. You know what I mean? I mean, we're all sacrificing right now. So not, let's not glorify it overtly, but I think they should be commended, not condemned.
So,
interesting comment.
OJCW saying Flyers are the weakest link, fraud defense, and untested goalie. Okay, I will say that Hart has not been tested in playoff format, but fraud defense, I don't know about that one. I guess he's a Penguins fan. Anyway.
Look at the numbers, buddy. Look at the numbers. One of the best defensive teams in all of NHL.
Yeah, the point differential was pretty 180 from last year.
Right. Now, Carter had his struggles on the road earlier this season, but he's also 21 years old. And Sam even said it in the last 11 games before the break, he had a .931 save percentage. Hey, it's all good, man. Haters hate. Defend your team. I respect the comments. I appreciate the good and the bad comments.
Hey, man, if he's a Penguins fan, which
comment.
I'm thinking he is, it's all right. It's all right. We welcome you here. And then on
he's a Drew Doughty fan. That's what it is.
He's a Drew Doughty fan. That's what it is. Yeah.
I will say this.
Good comment on that one, Rob. Good one, sir.
There is a possibility that some of these good teams, these elite teams, they could get exposed in this tournament.
They can be. I mean, sorry, Brian, but Sam was talking about Boston. Boston could get fucked in this playoff series. They could. Who knows? Maybe they come out and they're not, as the momentum has not been turned back for them like it was going into the suspension, and they lose in the first round to a team, Kirk saying be negative, but don't be a fucking dumbass. But, Boston could be a team that could be let down. Tampa could be a team that could be let down. Washington, I mean, hell, it may be the best thing in the world that we had this suspension for Washington because they were struggling going down the line there. So you never know. We've seen it happen so many times. Tampa got exposed last year by Columbus. They got swept right out of the fucking playoffs.
There's always a team.
Yeah. And
there's always a team.
Yeah, and it was one of the most embarrassing things to ever see happen to a President's Trophy winner. But it was also very enjoyable to point and laugh at them. But anyway, but with that, too, Prism 280 did state, does anybody feel bad for Eichel wasting away his career in Buffalo?
Yes and no. Yes and no, because it's a crappy run organization, and they haven't been very good in years. They're not really doing much to build for Eichel.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a Buffalo Sabres fan. I can't remember who it was, but it was a while back. And you know what? It was your buddy Ryan, who we were discussing the Buffalo Sabres with.
Right.
And I started throwing some of these players' names. Yeah, they have some good players on that roster, but some of the guys like Casey Middlestat, who was supposed to be, a top 6 player, he can't seem to stay on the NHL roster. So they keep. I shouldn't say keep because you never really know what you're going to get when you're drafting a prospect. They keep getting the short end of the stick in Buffalo, and a lot of that I blame on scouting. Some of that I blame on the GM.
Yeah. And Kirk saying, imagine winning 60-plus games and getting swept by the BJs. Oof. That would be...
Yeah.
That's
Toronto Blue Jays.
That's not even... Yeah.
And ironically, Toronto may be a neutral site location, which I'm highly for. I hope that worked out.
You guys want to break that down?
Flyers fans in Toronto.
Prism 280, I'd be cool with Ovi getting a second chip.
That's all I got to say about that. All right, so let's run into the Hub City considerations. What's up, Wells? You can catch Brian Wilson on ATD every Sunday whenever they feel like going on. It's pretty much their set time whenever they feel like it.
Nah, that's just been consistent lately, yo. That's been consistent. Well done.
All right. You check Brian Wilson with Nick Del Gazzo, Greg Malakovic, and Tom Arnone Sundays.
Should we get a counter for how many counter for this is how long they've gone on live at this time, and just have how many weeks it'll tally up before they change it?
Like one of those we've gone this many days without an accident.
Yes, like we should have that actually. Ryan, if you're listening, make one of those. Make something like that. That'll be awesome.
Chase Elliott won the NASCAR race in Charlotte. Just got that update from TSN.
Okay, then.
I know.
We're not that consistent.
I already knew that. That's why I said what I said. Love you guys, though. Love you guys. So,
of course.
Hub City considerations. I got the list here. I got Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Edmonton, Vegas, LA, Minneapolis / St. Paul, Pittsburgh, Toronto, and Vancouver.
Well, with everything going on in Minnesota, I think we could take that one off the list. Let's see here.
Yeah, that breaks my heart, but I'm not going to get into that.
See, that the tough part is I'm trying to think of what cities have been able to maintain a level of flattened curve or whatever the fuck you want to use there.
Well,
in terms of cases.
Think about the major cities. So let's talk about Chicago, LA, Las Vegas, and Toronto, like the big major cities that are in consideration. Wells, we're pumped too, man. We can't wait to get started again.
Hell yeah.
And you better be around next week when we have Chris Pronger on, you son bitch.
Oh, I'm sure he will be. Don't you worry.
So let's start with Chicago. Don't know really much about what's going on for.
And as always, fuck Schittsburg.
Yeah. So Chicago, don't really know much about what's going on. Don't really know if there's a major hotspot, but Union Center would be the place where they would play in Chicago. What do you guys think about that?
It's not a bad option with Chicago. And it is a major market, obviously, like you were saying. See, I think that might not be bad if you go into the summer months, because I'm trying to think of where more people would be heading to in the summer months. And the only reason why I say that is because I'm thinking about what's the possibility of a big spike in cases. I think LA would be a rough one to sell because people would probably want to go in there during the summertime, and that may not be a safe bet to go there. Chicago's not a bad option, though. What was it, Vancouver you said was another one?
Major markets, where did I go? Dallas.
And then, okay, that was it?
That's in the middle of downtown Dallas, too. So that's It's in the middle of the city. Another major market is Toronto.
Toronto, Vegas.
Vegas is another major market. I think Vegas is going to get taken off the table with LA at some point.
I would too. Yeah.
Very congested cities, big major markets, and whatever it is that they're respectively doing.
And in the
LA
summertime,
everything.
Yeah, you don't want to play with that, especially in the summertime where people will go on vacations and people will travel to cities. Maybe they won't do it as much, but some people will, because some people don't listen to fucking orders, and they'll go to those cities, so I don't know about that. Maybe Toronto. I could see them swinging Toronto because it's Canada. They would want a major city in Canada, and I could see Toronto being the one.
I see a team in Canada or a hub city in Canada, but there's a couple of things we have to worry about when it comes to that is, and it was brought up today when I was listening to WIP was travel.
Yeah.
There is a travel ban going into Canada.
That's true.
The U.S. has lifted the travel ban for professional athletes only, but I don't think Canada has yet. Yeah, no, Bros, you're absolutely right. Chicago is a good idea. I would expect Canada or close to Canada. Yeah, so Chicago, I think is a good option. I like Edmonton. I like Minneapolis. I think even considering everything going on right now with all the riots, and I think Minneapolis, St. Paul would be a really good area as well. Maybe do like the east in Columbus and the west in Minneapolis.
I'm fine with Columbus only because Columbus doesn't seem like it's a city that's as, massive as, say, Toronto or New York or Boston. Prism was saying they should put the games in the original 6 markets. Unfortunately, you can't, though, because of New York. That would be the only one you really can't do it in. I don't know about Boston.
Maybe not.
Maybe not Boston either. Montreal and Toronto, it's a possibility. But again, like you were saying, Brian, the travel ban, which is not, it's been lifted for pro athletes, but also we have to take into account there's European athletes that play in the NHL and they're on the teams. We don't know what the situation is with them.
No, that's what I'm talking about when I say the U.S. lifted the travel ban. The European players are going to be able to come back over.
Oh, they will be.
It's the ban into Canada, traveling into Canada that I'm not sure about.
Oh, okay. Got you. Yeah, and if we were going to finish off the original 6, Chicago would be the one. Detroit, I don't know about Detroit. Possible.
I'm not sure what their situation is, but that's not a bad. It's not a bad option. It's a new arena that they just pretty much opened up, but not exactly a nice city anymore.
No, especially if you got to keep people there for an extended period of time. They should do Hockey Island like the UFC.
I was waiting for these two fucking numbskulls to stop talking so I can say that.
I don't know when to shut up. You know that.
I would say, though, you know what? They could possibly do this. You want to know why? Yeah, there may be the ban on Canada and everything like that, but how many islands surround Canada and, the country of it? You mean to tell me they can't, go tell Newfoundland, hey, Newfoundland, do you got an arena? We're going to put the NHL there. We just need everybody to evacuate the island. Shouldn't be too hard.
I had a thought. Why not Hartford?
Hartford, that's not a bad option. Hartford's
not a heavy populated city.
No, it's not.
State, and it's they have an arena there that they haven't used. I don't know the condition that it's in, but
it's true. It's like Columbus. It's not as heavy populated, so you can get away with it. Just not a bad idea. Yeah, I don't mind that. Yeah, I like it only because when I'm thinking about it, it's like you got to think about the season you're going into. You're going in the summer. You don't want to put it in a place that's south, nor do you want to put anything on the West Coast or anywhere close to that. And the reason why is because people will go south during the summer, or they'll go to a beach, so they'll go to the coast. And if you got a city along the coast or you got a city that's down south, there's a very good chance you could get a spike in cases and then have some problems there. So I don't think Charlotte would be on the board, or Raleigh for that matter, and LA wouldn't either. So, and Kirk's saying traveling to the fucking Antarctica is a desolate as fuck.
Again, another great point by Kirk. Rob, what are you thinking?
I'm looking at a list of countries that have zero coronaviruses where we could get this done. And there's like there's Turkmenistan, there's Solomon Islands. If you want to do the island, I don't know. I was just getting a little.
No, it's all good. I'm laughing at Prism's comment. Detroit hasn't been nice 20 years before RoboCop.
Phenomenal comment.
Prism's saying hardcore
yeah, that's
great.
back.
Yeah.
Prism's showing off a little bit of that age, though. Unless he's talking about the new one. Quebec would be a good one. Quebec, I believe, still has their arena as well.
Yeah, they still have the Colisée.
So I mean, there's a bunch of different places. Again, Rob, Chicago, Columbus. Do you think they'll keep the hub? Solomon Islands. You think they keep the hub cities close together, or you think they kind of spread them across the country?
I think it's going to be spread, and it's going to be 2 locations. Like Western, Eastern located, like as best as they could possibly do. Some of the more remote areas, I'm very highly for North Dakota. We've talked about that.
Yep.
Yeah, we've talked about that on shows past, and certainly a lower population, low count there. I don't know if their hat is still on the table or if they're trying to move it, more towards a major metropolitan, starting to calm down. I mean, Vegas you could isolate though, and I don't really feel there's a lot of people with the casinos closed traveling to Vegas per se when their number one sort of tourist attraction is not in operation. So if I'm correct in that, I think it might not be bad because Vegas, at least on the strip where the Golden Knights play, is directly in between Henderson and Springfield, I want to say, is the bottom city, and they're spread off and they're sort of in their own little bubble, so it'd be, any reason that Pove can get out to Vegas, I'm for it. So
I kind of I didn't think about that. And Prism, dude, you got 2 years on me, brother. So my thought process as far as Vegas goes, and I didn't realize, I didn't really think about, the strip's already pretty much shut down as it is, right? Why not keep it shut down for the tournament and let the guys play in Vegas? I mean, if that's one of the cities that I feel like that they're ideally trying to be in.
They're opening June 4th. And I thought I was almost wrong as the words were coming out of my mouth because a fan of the station was out playing in a casino. I want to say it was in Connecticut, but I'm not positive. So they are starting to reopen the casinos, which I don't know. I'm a gambler, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. But
there goes that plan for Vegas.
Well, either way, though, I mean, in terms of keeping the hub cities close, I think they should. You don't want to keep them too far apart because the thing is like, what happens if you need to switch a team to a different hub city, or anything that, because again, nobody on the teams could get sick, nobody on the player personnel could get sick, none of the coaches, none of the production crew, but the city starts to have spikes in cases. So now you need to switch it to the next hub city. If you got to do this shit on the run, it's not a bad idea to have the hub cities close together. So that way traveling is not as bad because the problem is if like you're doing, say you have Vancouver and fucking Miami or Sunrise being the two, is like, yeah, it's fucking impossible to go from one straight to the other. That's damn near impossible. So I think that would be the best logic here because my assumption is prepare for the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is the moment they start playing, cases start to spike up because people don't stay the fuck home like they fucking should. So, that to me is where my mindset's at.
It's not a bad mindset to be in. Like I said, I do like the idea of Chicago. I like the idea of Columbus. It's a little more secluded. North Dakota is even more secluded.
Big time.
I like Connecticut. I do like Minneapolis, regardless of what's going on.
Hockey Island.
I think it should be Hockey Island. Is I would live on that island. It's just, I don't know. It's tough because they're not really giving any details on what they're looking for as far as, what they want in their cities. I know they want to keep it as secluded as possible, and obviously they're going to be looking for hot zones, potential for spikes.
Well, here's the thing: the NHL, if they get started at some point, they're the canary in the coal mine. They're the first ones to try this. No other sport's been trying anything. Like, yeah, they've been talking about the MLB, but the MLB hasn't said anything about moving forward with anything. They've just been pitching ideas, and that's it. And money does talk. But I will say, eventually I think we will get baseball games, but we may not get them for a minute only because of all of the back and forth between players, either wanting to play, not wanting to be isolated from their families. I think Mike Trout was one of the guys who specifically was talking about, I don't want to be away from my family. My wife's about to have a child, so, which is understandable.
They want to get paid. They want to get paid. That's what's holding it up. You know what I mean? And owners don't want to pay. That's what's holding it up. The NBA might, go in symmetry with the NHL. They're already putting in plans for their NBA tournament, which will be its normal 16-team tournament. I mean, NHL I think could certainly crack through, Maddie. And lead the way though. But I think that's what's important here is that what we're talking about. There's a lot. See, people got excited that this book came out, and they're like, "Fucking hockey's back." You know what? I don't want to be negative because I'm with you. Hockey is back. It's going to happen, but don't get too overtly excited because a lot of these things need to be decided before the boys can hit the ice.
Yeah. Fortunately, they're making all these announcements, and I mean, granted, it's the end of May, but with the plans that they have in place, July 10th to start training camps, it's a little more than a month away, and I'm sure they're in talks every single day trying to figure out the rest of the logistics, all the fine line stuff, and keeping an eye on new cases coming out and stuff like that. They got time to figure it out.
And they've also got to talk to the arena officials and make sure they have regulations put in of like, okay, this is what we got to do here to make sure the arena is ready. Even with no fans or no concessions or anything, still needs to have the thorough cleaning, still needs to make sure the facility is ready to go for the players and everything like that, and literally just do around-the-clock probable testing if anybody who has to clean the facility. There's just a lot of logistical stuff that has to be hammered out before you're ready to just say, okay, we're good to go.
And they'll be able to handle it. If Vince McMahon can handle it, they can handle it. And Vince McMahon dropped the dude out of the sky.
He did. He did.
By the way, go watch Dark Side of the Ring in case you haven't. But anyway.
Oh, is that what that was from?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I knew exactly what he was talking about. Oh, and Prism 280 saying North Dakota seems a great beat being close to Canada and secluded. Yes, that is true.
Right.
All right. With that, talking about the hub cities, now it's time for us to close out this bad boy. So with that, I think it's time for us to do our final segment, and that is, of course, the ever so beloved penalty box. Who wants to start out this fun little rendition, shall we?
I'll start.
All right, Brian, go right on ahead.
So I wasn't originally going to pick this, but I feel like it's something that I think needs to be said right now. We are all upset about what happened in Minnesota to that poor man from the police department, and those guys should absolutely be arrested and charged with murder and thrown in jail for the rest of their lives. However, the people that are out there looting and robbing and causing a ruckus, what good are you doing? You're not doing any good. You're being a part of the problem. I'm all for protesting and trying to get your points across, but this isn't getting anything across. This is you guys being just a bunch of assholes and just being angry for whatever reason that it is that you think that you're being angry for. If you got
Or
a
you're
point to get across,
yeah.
there's ways to do it. This isn't the way. It's not helping anybody. It's not helping anything.
Or you're taking advantage of a situation that's broken down and trying to, use your 5-finger discount and shit like that. It's just like, that's just terrible when you do things like that.
Wayne, everybody's going to be healthy. The only
Yeah.
person that we're not sure of yet is
Nolan
Patrick. And, my opinion, keep him out. Let him just rest. Let him get healthy. Don't rush him back.
Yeah, I agree with Sam when he said that earlier. Don't risk him getting hurt.
Don't risk ruining the mojo either. You got really good mojo going. But as far as these riders going, you're not doing anything good. You're not doing anything productive. You're being a part of the problem. You're not being a part of the solution.
Yeah,
use
absolutely.
your brains. Use your brains. Let's figure out a better way to get your point across. Let's find a better way to get justice for George, and think about what he would want the people to do. I'm all for getting him justice. I'm all for all that, but come on, rioting in the streets, breaking into Target, stealing everything from the store, and I'm sure there are other places, but this is only the videos I've seen. You're not helping anybody. You're making yourselves look like a bunch of pieces of shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm done.
We have our freedom of speech, but don't take advantage of the situation. Just that's terrible when you do that. You hurt the message. But all right then. I'll go. Mine is going to be those who participated in the bullying of Hana Kimura, who tragically killed herself after she was bullied, consistently and harshly bullied by several people on Twitter, and she eventually kills. And the background to this is that she slapped a guy on a reality show because he washed her wrestling outfit. Really, that's what caused this. Something that stupid on a dumb reality show, which all reality shows are dumb anyway. Scripted or not, it doesn't change the fact that whatever she did does not give you permission to attack her personally and to make her feel so bad about herself that she's willing to end her life. Like, you should be absolutely fucking ashamed of yourself for what you've done. Obviously, you're lucky that you can't be charged with murder for it, but you should think about how much you pretty much had a hand in that person killing themselves. It's terrible that anybody who gets on social media and wants to be a troll and just be a jackass and also wants to be a keyboard warrior. That's why I don't like social media, because you have this shit happen all the time where people constantly berate other people. It's just like, it's okay if you're having a friendly joust with someone that you know, and it's just clean. It's not personal. You're not attacking somebody and making fun of them to the point where you're basically doing it to be hurtful. It's okay when you're having fun and you're doing a little jabs back and forth. This was not that. This was people ganging up on a young lady who was 22 years old, by the way, younger than me, 22 years old, had her whole life, her whole career as a wrestler and as a TV star ahead of her, and you guys basically made her feel like shit and she killed herself. Like, awful. Just disgusting.
Good job.
Yeah, I will say this. Sometimes I wish social media didn't exist because of shit like this. That's the only time I just wish social media didn't exist, because people are assholes. And it gives them the right to be assholes.
Listen. You're going to get those people whether you have social media or not.
But it gives them an outlet to be an asshole without consequences and say disgusting, vile things. And we've seen this countless times over the years, and this being the latest incident. What people need to remember is, yes, you have a chance to really get somebody's goat and say something negative and make yourself feel better. You also have an opportunity to make someone's day, to put a smile on their face, to be positive, right? And in the business that we work in sensationalism, you don't need to be a hater to be successful. I see a lot of positive men and women at this radio station that make it every day. You have an opportunity to make a difference and be positive in people's lives. Do that. instead.
Yep.
Please.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, too much negativity in the world as it is, and Twitter is, I feel like, the center of it all.
Yeah. So, all of you guys who are responsible, you know who you are, who made fun of her, leading to her eventually committing suicide, which, by the way, condolences to her family and to her mother, who is also a wrestler. No parent should ever have to bury their child, and that's just a shame that happened. And, for anybody out there who had a hand in it, you know who you are. I don't care if you feel sorry. You deserve a lifetime ban off of Twitter and pretty much just off of enjoying anything because of just how disgustingly disrespectful you truly were to somebody and their privacy.
You should be blocked like on Black Mirror.
Never saw Black Mirror. Never saw Black Mirror.
Some people will get that joke. Geez, I feel like I have to go light here. You guys came strong with two heavy, really deep-seated stories. Luckily, I have a light story prepared.
Okay.
Scott Waring, who is a UFO hunter who runs the ET database YouTube channel. I guess some people subscribe to. He claims he found the entrance.
I will now.
You like to watch the alien shows, Brian?
Oh yeah, dude, I love that stuff.
Nice. So you could be up your alley.
Do you really think we're the only ones in this universe? Because we're not.
I go back and forth on the issue, but he has evidence that you could be correct, Brian, because he claims he found the entrance underground alien base on an uninhabited island in Indonesia. And I'll try to show you the picture if you can see it. This is what was caught via Google Earth from satellite, and he's referring to that oval in the middle that looks like it's like an insert into the ground that only a spaceship could fly through.
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
You got to. I'm only going to play it for 10 seconds, Frodo, but you got to hear this dude talk.
So let's zoom in on this little island.
Can you hear that?
The island is uninhabited. It's very small. And here we are. Look at that. Here is the object. It looks like some kind of
He sounds like a documentarian.
Or entrance to an underground.
He sounds like a fucking tool, dude.
He sounds like a flat earther.
He's very passionate. He's very passionate for what he brings to his YouTube channel. So I'm not hating on him, right? I found this story amusing, so I wanted to bring it to the show. I'm only giving him a 2-minute minor. I'm giving him a 2-minute minor for tribbling. You see what I did there?
I love it.
Let's think about this for a second here. There's how many galaxies in this universe? Hundreds of millions of billions.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way we're it.
Well, I mean, not to dampen the mood, though, Stephen Hawking has said we shouldn't try and find extraterrestrial life because last thing we want to do is have War of the Worlds actually happen in real life.
Yeah, true.
But that's his viewpoint.
Hey,
so
listen, I respect the great Stephen Hawking's viewpoint, but who's to say they already haven't been here?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I agree with you, Brian, that if we're naive enough to think that we're it, that's foolish talk. But I don't think that there's like all this UFO nonsense in terms of visiting this Earth, right? If that would have happened, there would have been a like, let's say if we went to an Earth that we established or inhabited people, would we not try to make contact, right? I think that's where it gets far-fetched. I think they stay in their lane, we stay in ours. Maybe they're just starting to explore out to their Mars, you know what I mean, and have visited their moon. But I don't think there's ever been, like, I have a hard time believing that. But because I believe that there is extraterrestrial life, I'm almost hypocritical in saying that they haven't been here, in a way.
Well, also, you also got to think how much of this government doesn't tell us. I mean, we hear theories about Area 51 and Roswell, New Mexico, and spaceship crashing down. Gritty. It's
put that Ritz comment up, Reto.
Oh no.
Hey, Kirk, Spock, and Bones. Where do you think Gritty came from?
He's coming down from the ship right now.
Oh my god, that's great.
That's a much better shot. I'm gonna leave that for the rest of the show here.
So I mean, like I said, think about it. Alien, yeah. Hashtag alien talk here, Bredo.
Too many
Just to think
galaxies
about
in
it.
the universe. Must be alone.
That's what I'm saying. I lost my train of thought though.
All right.
That's
what I do.
You totally threw me off.
That's what I do. I hijack shit.
The government
Shows.
How much do you think that they don't tell us? I mean, like I said, Area 51, Roswell, New Mexico, just to name a couple things, and there's way too many like things going on like that have been documented, like UFO sightings, crop circles. You know, I absolutely believe that they've been here. I'm sure we've probably tried to communicate, but how many of them have come close enough for us to actually try?
All I can say is that this is the special Ancient Alien edition of Hockey Happy Hour. We hope you guys have been enjoying it.
Also, explain the freaking Stonehenge. How is that? That is not. There's no way that is man-made. And thank you for reminding me about that, Maddie, on Ancient Aliens. Explain that one. There's no way that's man-made.
Because men were men back then, not the fucking pussies they are today.
They're not like Drew Doughty and say it's a tainted cup.
They just lift 1,000 pounds like nobody's fucking business.
They used to go out and hunt dinosaurs back then.
Yeah, pyramids.
T-Rexes used to run from them. Anyway.
But like crop circles can be explained with wind erosion, you know what I mean? And things
absolutely.
of that nature, you know what I mean? Like I guess I try to find a logical explanation of things, but we don't know for 100% certainty.
Hey man, that's all well and good because we don't know. We don't we think that all the galaxies. There's no way we're the only ones. We're not certain about that. So you never know. Like you believe what you believe, and it's all well and good. You live and let live, and you just keep it moving, bro.
Yeah. So with that being said, and Ted FX saying, do you guys think that it's weak the Blackhawks were gifted a playoff berth? Stonehenge, no clue.
As far as the Blackhawks go, yes, I think Montreal was gifted it more than Chicago.
Yeah, Montreal.
Yeah.
Chicago is only 6 points behind with 12, 14 games to go. I mean, there was a few.
They were playing well.
They were playing well. Few teams in between there, of course. So gifted possibly, yeah, but with a purpose. They want that Chicago TV revenue.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and it's a possible place where they wind up playing this tournament. So it's a possibility that Chicago might get the only team to get home ice advantage.
Although would they get the Chicago TV revenue if it's happening in a hub city? Because with their teams playing, I don't know that with 100% certainty.
I think it has to do with the teams that are playing that.
Right.
And if they're the television rights as far as
yeah, because you're not. I mean, like say say in Anaheim, the Anaheim Ducks, who are not in this year's playoffs, in case we didn't address that at the show. Okay, I'm being the hater right now. But are they going to show the Blackhawks playing the Blues in Anaheim? No, but they're certainly going to be playing in Chicago. So to your point, you're correct.
I think it's going to be like similar to the regular playoff setup. You'll have games on USA. Everything's going to go through NBC as it always does. Right. So you get games on NBC, NBCSN, USA, MSNBC, like all those stations that usually have playoff games televised. I think it's going to be the same situation there, and I think the revenue from those markets are going to go into the NHL instead of going into the teams.
To segue from picking on Brian, the New Jersey Devils also did not make this year's NHL playoff system.
That is always pleasant. That's always a good year.
Listen,
and Buffalo for you, Maddie, too.
Take a top 5 pick.
Well, Both of them
yeah.
qualify. I will take that. I will definitely take that.
Especially in this year's draft. If you missed our draft special a few weeks back, there's a lot of meat out there in this year's draft, boys.
Absolutely. Prism
Give me
2A
full
saying
perfetti all day,
aliens
baby.
would probe us by thousands at a time. Millions voted because they wanted a wall. Aliens only have to promise to bring Kmart back and boom in our pants. That's a good comment. Nice one. I like that one. I think that one
Nobody
wins
wants.
for
Listen,
that one wins for the night. I think that's the best one.
nobody wants Kmart back. Prism usually has a bunch of good comments. I think TedFX had another comment up there that we missed.
He did. He was saying, and do we want the number 1 seed or do we want it right? Honestly,
They don't know. I don't think they necessarily know what they're doing with it yet.
yeah, I mean, if it winds up being the case where we get the number 1 seed, it is what it is. If we, it doesn't really matter because it doesn't guarantee you the cup. If you get the number 1 seed, who cares? If you wind up, busting out in the first round and losing, just like, well, guess that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that we had the number 1 seed. So it doesn't really bother me if we get it or we don't. What really matters is
the matchups.
Yeah, that's do we get the good matchup? But with that being said, though, guys, we thank everybody out there who commented in during the Sam Carchidi interview. We also thank you for commenting in afterwards. We love you guys. You guys keep us flowing with that nice little blood that people need to live, including this station. You guys are the lifeblood. And we thank our sponsors. We thank Specialized Physical Therapy. There we go. English. And
English, motherfucker. Do you speak it?
and we also want to thank Ambuck Services. Listen, man, states are starting to reopen, and there are a few people who are having some private get-togethers, which isn't a bad thing. It's not in the public, only a few handful of people. That's perfectly fine. And you probably want your gutters and your front lawn to look good, do you not? If you're going to have people over. So you want to go to Ambuck Services. You can call them at 856-879-5530. Thanks, Prism. We'll see you next week. And by the way, folks, Chris Pronger will be on the show next week, so don't miss it. 10 o'clock, we'll be live. 7:30. My bad. Getting everything all mixed up. That's 2 weeks from now. We'll go back 10 o'clock. Anyway, sorry. And Chrome will be joining us for that show. So just letting you guys know. So with that being said, though, Ambuck Services, they'll take care of your gutters. They'll trim the trees, the bushes. They'll make sure that your lawn looks great. All you got to do is mow after that. That's all you got to do is mow the lawn. That's easy. Don't have to trim those trees. Don't have to trim those bushes. Thank you, Kirk. We'll see you next week with Pronger.
Hey, brother.
And so like I said before, Ambuck Services, get your lawn looking nice. Get those gutters cleaned. And when you have the people over, they'll be envious. And they'll say, you know what? I need to call Ambuck Services because I want my lawn and I want my gutters to look that awesome. But anyway, thank you all for joining us once again for another edition of the Hockey Happy Hour. I am Matt Tsutsuti, along with the Darkwing Brian Daly. Down below, none other than Mr. Rob, the Broken One, Povia.
Peace, guys. Hockey's almost back.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, patience. It's almost upon us. We thank you for joining us next week. Chris Pronger, 7:30. Don't miss it. It'll be the biggest interview we have ever done, and it truly will be, for the Hockey Happy Hour. I'm excited. I know these two are excited. Everybody's excited. We'll see you then. Till that time, though. Yes, Brian?
Just want to thank one more time Sam Carchidi from the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Yes.
Flyers beat writer for joining us tonight. We'll definitely have to have him on again.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sam, for being on the show. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. We will see you guys next week right here on A2DRadio.com. Until then, guys, peace, love, stay safe, be healthy, and we'll see you at 7:30 with Pronger next week. Bye, everyone.